I still remember the day I walked 5 miles in the snow just to sell my only cow. Her name was Daisy. She was all I had left. No land, no savings, just Daisy. And a dream for my son to have the life I never did. That day, I traded milk for tuition. I traded warmth for hope. And now, he walks past me on the sidewalk like I'm a stranger. Not just once, every time. Before we dive in, if this story moves you, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to keep the stories coming your way. Just a heads up, we don't just share stories here, we invite you to experience them. There's a little quiz at the end, just for fun. It's our way of saying thanks for watching closely and spotting the subtle moments others might miss. My name's Helen, and I raised my son Marcus in a 2-room wooden house just outside Billings, Montana. There were nights the cold came in through the floorboards, and the only thing standing between us and frostbite was Daisy, our cow, and 3 layers of old blankets. We didn't have much, but Marcus had dreams, big ones. When he turned 14, he started saying things like, "Mom, I'm going to be the first in this family to wear a suit to work. Mom, I'll take care of you one day." I believed him. The summer he got accepted into a prep school in Boston, we celebrated with pancakes, the last of the flour. But when the fees came in, reality hit like a brick. $7,400 a semester. I don't think I'd seen that much money in my entire life. I begged. I wrote letters. I applied for aid. Nothing came through. So I did the only thing left. I walked that 5-mile stretch to the livestock dealer just outside town. Held Daisy's rope the whole way. She trusted me. And I betrayed her with a signature and a handshake. I still remember how quiet the barn felt after she was gone. But Marcus, he got his chance. And that's all I ever wanted. The years flew by. He went off to school, got scholarships, interned at some law firm, graduated with honors, started his own company. I watched it all from my tiny house with dial-up internet and peeling paint on the porch. I didn't complain. Didn't ask for much. Just the occasional phone call. A "Hi, Mom." A "How's the weather?" Sometimes he called. Most times he didn't. But last week, I was standing in line at the grocery store, clipping coupons and counting change, when I heard his voice, Marcus's voice, right behind me. He was wearing a tailored coat, hair slicked back, holding his phone like it was part of his hand. He didn't see me at first. When I turned around, I smiled and said, "Marcus, honey?" He paused, then looked through me like I was just another tired old woman. I stood there, frozen. People behind me began to shuffle, annoyed. The cashier cleared her throat, but I couldn't move. My body was in the checkout line. But my heart had just been kicked into a memory 20 years deep. I remember the first time Marcus looked at me like that. Not with love, but with disappointment. He was 13, had just come home from school, arms full of books we couldn't afford. He wanted to go on a school trip, a museum in D.C. He asked me for $120. I told him I didn't have it. And he didn't cry, didn't yell, he just looked at me, like I'd failed him. Like I wasn't trying. I was. God knows, I was. That same night I picked up another shift at the diner, burned my wrist on the griddle, and made just enough to cover half. But Marcus never forgot that look. And apparently, neither did I. I made it home with my groceries. 3 cans of soup, a dented box of crackers, and 1 loaf of bread I had to put back because I was short 62 cents. The house felt colder than usual. I wrapped myself in the old quilt and stared at the clock. 8:14 p.m. That's around the time Marcus used to call on his birthday. He hasn't called in 3 years. I reached for my phone, typed his name in the search bar, and stared at the screen. Marcus Thorne, CEO, Thorne Tech Solutions. Forbes 40 under 40. LinkedIn profile with over 3 million followers. I clicked on one of the articles. There was a photo. Him in a tuxedo, glass of champagne, standing beside a man I recognized. My brother, Uncle Pete. He hadn't spoken to me in over a decade. Something about me ruining Marcus with my poverty. I scrolled further. Marcus was launching a scholarship fund for single mothers. The irony nearly knocked the breath out of me. I didn't sleep that night, just lay there in the dark, listening to the wind rattle the windows and the floor creak under memories. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked to the post office and mailed a letter. Not a text, not an email, a real letter, ink on paper, folded in thirds and sealed with a shaky thumbprint. "Dear Marcus," it began, "I saw you yesterday. You didn't recognize me. Maybe it was the coat. Maybe it was the years. Maybe it was me." I paused, then wrote, "I just wanted you to know, Daisy didn't die for nothing." That was all I wrote. No return address, no phone number, just his name and the memory of a mother who had nothing and still gave it all. 3 days passed, then 5, then 10, no response, until I got a knock on my door. Now, no one ever knocks on my door. The mailman leaves letters in the box. The neighbors don't visit. Jehovah's Witnesses gave up years ago, so I knew it was something or someone. I opened it slowly, and for a second my heart jumped. But it wasn't Marcus. It was a young woman, no more than 20, standing in the cold with a clipboard and red-rimmed eyes. "Are you Helen Thorne?" I nodded. I'm Claire. I'm interning with Thorntech's outreach program. Mr. Thorne asked me to deliver this." She handed me a thick envelope and turned to leave. Before I could ask anything, she was gone. Inside the envelope wasn't a letter. It was a check. $50,000. Made out to cash. No note, no explanation, just the check. I sat down slowly, my hands trembling. Was this his way of apologizing? A payoff? Or guilt money wrapped in silence? I didn't cash it. I couldn't, because behind the generosity was something that felt wrong. Cold. Calculated. He still hadn't acknowledged me. Not as his mother, not as the woman who raised him. Sold her cow. Stitched his name into hand-me-down sweaters so the bullies wouldn't tease him. Just a check, like I was a vendor, or a problem to be managed. That night, I did what I hadn't done in years. I called Uncle Pete. I still had the number scratched into the back of an old address book. He answered on the third ring. "Hello? Pete, it's Helen." Silence. Then a slow exhale. "Well, this is a surprise." We hadn't spoken since my husband died. I got to the point. "Why does Marcus hate me?" There was another pause. Longer this time. Then he said something I'll never forget. "It's not hate, Helen. It's shame." Shame? He thinks he owes you more than he can repay. So instead of trying, he hides. Because if he comes back, he's afraid you'll see who he really became. I couldn't breathe. "And who is that?" I whispered. Pete's voice cracked. "Someone who forgot what love looks like when it doesn't wear a suit." I hung up and sat in silence. Shame. I'd never thought of it that way. But maybe Pete was right. Maybe Marcus didn't forget me. Maybe he was just trying to outrun the version of himself that started in my arms, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, while I hummed lullabies and swore I'd protect him from everything, even poverty. But he didn't want that part of his story anymore. It didn't match his brand. Didn't look good in interviews. The next week, I received another visitor. This time, it was Marcus. He came alone. No cameras, no assistant, no coat. Just him, and eyes I hadn't seen since he was 10. He didn't speak right away. Just stood on the porch, his hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. I nodded. He stepped inside and looked around. The same peeling walls, same old photo of us at the county fair, same chair where I used to sit and knit while he read out loud. He sat. I didn't. Then he said, "I got your letter." I nodded. "I'm sorry." Still, I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say. I still don't. His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw the boy again. Not the CEO, not the man on the magazine cover, but my Marcus. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a ribbon. Old, faded, blue. "Remember this?" he asked. It was his third-grade award for Best Reader. I'd tied that ribbon to his backpack for years. He kept it. "I carry it in my briefcase," he said, to remind me where I started. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. He stood up and stepped closer. Then he whispered, "I didn't forget you, Mom. I was just scared that maybe you forgot me." I wanted to reach for him, to touch his cheek like I used to when he had night terrors, to remind him that no matter how far he ran, no matter how much he changed, he was still mine, my Marcus. But something inside me hesitated. It was like reaching across a canyon that used to be a creek. He was standing right in front of me, and yet I felt miles away. I swallowed the lump in my throat. And I did what I always did when I didn't know what else to do. I turned to the kitchen. "You hungry?" I asked. He nodded slowly. I started heating up the soup from the cans I bought the day he pretended not to know me. I used the dented pot with the loose handle. The one I used to make mac and cheese in when he was 9. He stood awkwardly near the window, rubbing his hands together, like he didn't know what to do with himself. "How long you in town for?" I asked, not turning around. He hesitated. "A few days, maybe less. I have meetings in Denver, but I wanted to stop by." My heart caught that word, stop. Like this was a detour, a pit stop between deals and flights and people who did know who he was. We ate in silence. He barely touched his soup. I watched his eyes scan the room, not for comfort, but like he was searching for landmines. Then, he asked something that made my stomach drop. "Did you ever regret it?" I stared at him. Selling Daisy, giving up everything for me. My spoon stopped midair. It wasn't just a question, it was a confession. He'd been carrying the weight of that sacrifice like a stone in his briefcase all these years. I looked him in the eye. "Marcus, I regretted a lot of things in my life, but not that." He looked down. I continued, softer now. "I only regret what came after." After dinner, we sat in the living room. The clock ticked loud between us. Then he said something strange. "I visited Dad's grave last year." I blinked. "You did?" He nodded. I hadn't been back since the funeral. His father had died of lung cancer when Marcus was 12. We buried him in a small cemetery just outside Livingston. I didn't have the money for a proper headstone, just a wooden cross and his name carved by hand. "I upgraded the grave," Marcus said, almost apologetically. "Put in a stone marker, granite, clean." I didn't know whether to be grateful or ashamed. He paused. "There was a letter under a rock near the cross." I turned toward him sharply. He pulled a folded, weathered envelope from his jacket. "I think it was meant for you." My hands trembled as I took it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Mine. But I had no memory of writing it. It was dated 12 years ago. I read the words slowly, aloud, my voice cracking. "Dear Will, I'm sorry for the way things ended, for the things I said, for the silence after. I see so much of you in Marcus now, the way he clenches his jaw when he's holding back tears, the way he stares too long at his own hands, like he's afraid there'll never be enough." I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. "I sold Daisy today. I know how much she meant to you, but he got into Boston Prep, and I couldn't say no. I looked up at Marcus. His eyes glistened. Sometimes I wonder if he'll hate me for all the things I had to give up. But I hope he remembers why I did it, and that even when I had nothing, he still had all of me. The room fell into a silence that felt like church. I folded the letter carefully and held it to my chest. I had written it during the hardest week of my life, then buried it with the man who could never read it. Maybe because I couldn't say the words out loud, until now. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "There's more, Mom. There's something I never told you." I turned toward him slowly. He exhaled deeply, like it hurt to let it go. When I was in college, there was a night. I'd just gotten back from a party. I was drunk. My phone rang. It was you. I let it go to voicemail. I remembered that night. I'd called because a pipe had burst in the kitchen and water was pouring everywhere. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I never listened to the voicemail, he whispered. I just deleted it. My chest tightened. I found out later that was the night you got hypothermia. My eyes welled. I nodded. I spent 2 nights in the hospital. The neighbor found me passed out on the floor. He looked away, shame crawling across his face. I didn't know until months later, and by then, I didn't know how to face you. We sat in silence. Time didn't feel real in that moment. Then I asked something I never thought I would. Why now, Marcus? Why come back? He looked at me, not with fear, not with shame, but with something raw, wounded. Because I saw a woman crying in the street last week. She was holding her son's photo. He'd run away, didn't leave a note. He paused, his voice shaking. She looked just like you, and I thought, if something ever happened to you and I hadn't made this right. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I stood up, walked over to the window, and stared out into the cold Montana night. Snow had started falling again, light at first, but steady. Behind me, Marcus was quiet. I didn't turn around when I said it. You can stay the night. Guest room still got your old bedding. He didn't answer. I finally turned. He was staring at the mantel, at the photo of us. Me, holding him as a baby, wrapped in that patched quilt we couldn't afford to replace. He touched the frame softly, then looked at me. I'm scared you'll never forgive me. I stepped closer. And I'm scared you think that's what I need. We said goodnight. He went upstairs. I stayed in the living room a little longer, listening to the creaks in the floor above as he moved around, as if the house itself was trying to remember him. I fell asleep in the chair. Just before dawn, I woke up to the sound of the front door opening. I walked to the hall. Marcus was standing there, with a suitcase in one hand and Daisy's bell in the other. He held it out to me. I found it in the barn. It still smells like her. I took it carefully, tears catching in my lashes. He opened the door and said, I'm not leaving, not this time, but I need to find a way to come back right. He stepped outside. The sun was just rising behind him. Then he turned, just before disappearing down the path. I love you, Mom. And then he was gone. The silence that followed was so thick it felt alive, like the house itself exhaled, and I inhaled what was left behind. I stood there in the open doorway, his footprints still fresh in the snow. My hand tightened around the old cowbell, the rusted edge pressing gently into my palm. I love you, Mom. He said it like a confession, like something he had rehearsed 100 times and only just now found the courage to say. But the truth is, love can come too late. Not because the feeling wasn't real, but because the damage had already rooted itself so deep, it grew thorns around your heart. I closed the door slowly, as if afraid the moment might slip away if I moved too fast. And then I did what I hadn't done since the day I gave Daisy away. I cried. Not the kind of tears that fall in silence, but the kind that shake you, the kind that carry everything you didn't say when it still mattered. For the next 3 days, I didn't hear from Marcus. He didn't call, didn't write, didn't show up. But I knew he hadn't gone far. I checked the guest room and found something I hadn't noticed before. A small notebook on the nightstand. Its pages dog-eared, some torn. I opened it. Inside were scribbles, sentences unfinished, words scratched out and rewritten. Notes to himself like, she used to hum when she cooked. What was that song? Buy replacement quilt? No, maybe sew one instead. Ask about Dad's toolbox. It was like peering into a man trying to stitch back a memory, piece by piece. One page stopped me cold. In the middle of the page, circled twice. Why did she lie about the scholarship? Lie? What lie? I kept rereading it as if the meaning would change if I stared hard enough. But I knew exactly what he was talking about, because it wasn't a lie. It was a decision I made to protect him. Back then, Marcus had applied to 6 prep schools. He got rejected from 5. The 6th one, Boston Prep, offered him a partial scholarship. Very partial. The school had sent a rejection first, then changed their minds when another student dropped out. They offered him a slot, but only if he could pay half the tuition. I told Marcus he got a full scholarship. I didn't want him to carry the weight of knowing we were going into debt. Didn't want him to hold guilt in his pockets when he was trying to carry dreams in his hands. So I sold Daisy, took out a loan under a predatory rate, and told him the scholarship covered it all. I never thought he'd find out. But maybe he did. Maybe recently. Maybe that was the crack that made the guilt pour in. Still holding the notebook, I walked outside to clear my head. The snow had hardened. Each step crunched beneath me like bones. I walked past the barn, past the dying tree where we once hung wind chimes, and found myself standing at the edge of the frozen creek behind the house. That's when I saw him, across the creek, sitting on a stump, head in his hands. Marcus. He looked up slowly as if he'd known I'd come. Didn't smile, didn't wave, just waited. I crossed carefully and sat beside him. "You found the notebook," he said quietly. I did. He nodded. Then, without looking at me, "Did you lie about the scholarship?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I protected you from the truth." He stayed quiet for a while, snow gently falling around us like the sky was trying to erase everything we were saying. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I found out about the loan, after college, when I pulled your credit history to see if I could co-sign a car for you." I blinked. "You did that?" He nodded. "I was going to surprise you. Thought maybe you needed help. But when I saw what you'd done..." He shook his head. "I didn't know how to process it. I thought you were reckless, irresponsible. Why not just tell me?" I turned to him slowly. "Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me. I wanted you to fly, not drag a chain behind you." He sighed deeply, then stared at the frozen water. "Do you think love means hiding the hard parts?" I didn't answer right away. "I think love means choosing what pain is worth carrying, and I decided I'd carry it so you wouldn't have to." His eyes were wet now. "And I decided I'd run so I wouldn't have to face that." We sat in silence again. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. "This came in the mail today, forwarded from my office. It's from someone named Eli Carter." I felt my stomach drop. Eli. That name hadn't passed my lips in 20 years. He handed it to me. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sentence. "He doesn't know the full truth, does he?" And a photo of Marcus and another boy, one that looked just like him. Same jawline, same eyes, but smaller, younger. I gasped. What? What is this? Marcus looked at me, stunned. You tell me. My hand covered my mouth as I stared at the photo again. I couldn't speak. Memories I had locked away came flooding back. Eli was a friend, a kind man, one who had comforted me during a time of unimaginable grief. After Will died, there had been one night, just one. A night when the house felt too big and too empty, and I felt too broken to breathe. I never knew it had led to anything more. At least, I told myself I didn't. But that child in the photo, the boy beside Marcus, he wasn't just a stranger, he was blood. I stood up, knees weak. I need a moment. Marcus grabbed my arm gently. Mom, what is this? Who is he? I turned away and whispered, he might be your brother. I always thought the hardest part of being a mother was letting go. Watching them leave, make mistakes, find their own way. But I was wrong. The hardest part is realizing they've grown into someone you no longer recognize, and wondering if the version of you they remember is even real anymore. But maybe the truth is more complicated than love or betrayal. Maybe it's about the space between, where sacrifice lives in silence and pain hides in good intentions. I carried secrets to protect him. He buried his guilt to survive me. And now, after all these years, the story isn't finished. It's just unraveling. And in the unraveling, maybe, just maybe, we'll finally find the thread that ties us back together. If this story moved you, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Because here on Fiction Echoes, we don't just tell stories. We hold up a mirror to the lives we've all quietly lived. Until next time, take care of your truth and never assume silence means forgetting. How many times was Helen mentioned in the story? Don't just guess. Show us you were really paying attention. Comment below.